Did you know there exists a force within a woman so powerful, so ancient, that it can overturn everything she has built in her life? A force that can make her walk away from her children, her home, her future, and do it not in years, not in months, but in days. Psychology has tried for decades to explain it, but Carl Jung, the great explorer of the human psyche, uncovered something that shook even him. Deep inside the female mind lives an archaic program, a survival instinct older than civilization itself. It does not bow to logic. It does not listen to reason. It does not even care about love. And when this instinct awakens, it does not whisper. It roars. A woman can love you with all her heart today and still walk away tomorrow. She can cling to stability, loyalty, and comfort for years, only to abandon it in a single instant for something her mind swore she never wanted. Why? Because this force inside her is older than love itself, older than marriage, older than morality, older than the very idea of forever. It is not about betrayal. It is not about weakness. It is not even about choice. It is about biology, a code written into her DNA long before society, long before religion, long before men even dreamed of romance. And here is the truth Jung uncovered. This instinct is designed to overpower love itself. Picture this. A woman grows up believing kindness matters, that loyalty is everything, that emotional safety and stability are the highest values in a partner. She repeats it to her friends, her family, even to herself. She swears she would never give those things up. And then, one day, she meets him. Not the man who gives her comfort, not the man who provides stability, not the man who bends over backwards to fulfill her every need. Number. She feels drawn, helplessly, irrationally, to the man who defies her rules, the man who does not chase, the man who does not surrender, the man whose presence feels like danger, like fire, like the unknown. And suddenly everything she thought she believed collapses. Because what she thought was choice was never hers to begin with. It was written in her biology. Carl Jung called this discovery one of the deepest truths about the nature of women. He realized this instinct is not about emotional connection, not about shared values, not about love stories. It is about survival. Her subconscious is scanning for one thing, and one thing only: strength that ensures her bloodline endures. And here is the disturbing part. That definition of strength has nothing to do with what modern society calls good. It does not care if he is kind. It does not care if he is patient. It does not care if he is safe. This instinct runs on ancient programming, carved into her nervous system when humans still lived in caves. A world where safety did not come from loyalty. It came from power, from dominance, from the kind of man who could survive the storm, fight off predators, and lead a tribe. Her biology is still hunting for that man, and when she meets him, whether in a fleeting glance, a brush of his hand, or a single word spoken with unshaken confidence, her body makes the decision before her mind even knows what happened. Her pulse quickens, her breath changes. The world blurs, and suddenly he becomes the center of gravity. Now pause for a moment. Think about how terrifying this is, because it means love, loyalty, and rational planning can be overwritten in seconds. Women themselves admit it. They say, "I don't feel like myself." They describe it as if something else has taken the wheel of their mind. Friends and family beg them not to make mistakes. They remind her of everything she stands to lose. But she does not listen, not because she doesn't care, but because she can't. She is being pulled by a force far below her conscious thought, a storm she never chose. This is why even the brightest, most self-aware women sometimes make choices that look like self-destruction, why they turn away from steady men who would give them everything and chase the very men they swore they would never touch. It is not immaturity. It is not bad judgment. It is not madness. It is nature. And nature does not ask for permission. Jung realized that this instinct doesn't just affect who she chooses. It changes how she sees reality itself. The man who does not trigger her instinct feels boring, even if he is the one who loves her the most. The man who does trigger it can be arrogant, distant, even cruel, but she will interpret those very flaws as signs of strength. His emotional distance, it doesn't feel cold, it feels magnetic. His unpredictability, it doesn't feel unsafe. It feels thrilling. His arrogance, It doesn't feel threatening, it feels protective. This is the cruel trick of biology. It rewires her perception. It paints over danger with desire. It erases warnings and replaces them with longing. And when this switch is flipped, logic does not just bend, it breaks. The scariest part? This program does not even need love to operate. A woman can be deeply in love with a man, share years of loyalty, family, memories, and still be pulled with unstoppable force towards someone else. And when that happens, it is not a slow process. It does not creep in over months. It crashes into her reality like lightning splitting the sky. Her world flips. What once felt safe now feels suffocating. What once felt warm now feels like a cage. What once felt like love now feels like a chain. And in that moment, she believes she has finally found clarity. She believes she is waking up to her true desires. But the truth is far more brutal. This is not clarity. This is programming. And once you see this truth, you can never unsee it, because you will begin to notice it everywhere. In the way her voice shifts when she speaks to certain men, in the way her eyes betray her when he walks into the room, in the way she rewrites her own past to justify the storm happening inside her. This instinct is not rare. It is not occasional. It is universal. It is written into every woman's DNA. And that is why Jung's discovery is not just a psychological curiosity. It is a wake-up call. Because the man who does not understand this force will always feel like a victim of it. He will beg, plead, and try to fight the storm with reason, never realizing that reason was never part of the equation. But the man who does understand becomes something else entirely. He stops fearing the storm. He stops clinging to the illusion of control. He stops chasing love as if it were survival. And instead, he learns to master the only kingdom a man can ever truly rule: his own mind. This was just the first crack in the illusion Jung exposed. But as we go deeper, you'll see that this instinct not only rewrites her feelings, it rewrites her memories, her values, even her sense of self. And once you understand how this ancient program works, you will never look at love, loyalty, or attraction the same way again. Because this is not just psychology. This is the oldest survival code in human history. When this instinct awakens inside a woman, it does not simply tug at her emotions. It hijacks her entire nervous system. Science shows us that her brain begins to flood with chemicals the moment she encounters the man who triggers this ancient switch. Dopamine surges, narrowing her focus until he becomes the center of her universe. Adrenaline floods her system, making her feel alive, electric, unstoppable. Norepinephrine sharpens her senses, as if the entire world has suddenly shifted into high definition. Colors seem brighter, voices feel louder, his presence feels magnetic, impossible to ignore. And here is the devastating part. This storm of chemicals does not just change how she feels in the moment. It begins to rearrange her past. Carl Jung described this as one of the most disturbing truths he uncovered. When the instinct activates, a woman's brain doesn't just shift her emotions, it rewrites her memories. Conflicts from years ago, long forgiven, suddenly swell in her mind like scars that never healed. A careless word spoken in anger years ago becomes proof that her relationship was flawed from the beginning. Meanwhile, the good memories, the laughter, the trust, the late-night conversations, the warmth of shared struggles begin to fade like ink dissolving in water. It is not that those moments never happened. It is that her biology no longer allows her to feel their weight. What once felt sacred now feels meaningless. What once gave her strength now feels like a chain holding her down. This is why relationships that once looked unshakable can collapse overnight. Because the collapse does not begin outside, it begins inside her mind. And here lies the cruel paradox. She does not feel as if she is being deceived. She does not feel as if her biology is rewriting her story. She feels the opposite. She feels like she has finally woken up. Women in this state often describe it the same way. I finally see clearly. I finally know what I truly want. I finally feel alive again. But what they are experiencing is not clarity, it is reframing. The oldest survival program in human history, painting over the past, distorting the present, and convincing her it is the truth. And this reframing is merciless. Her partner, the man who has stood by her side for years, begins to feel unbearable to her. His smallest mistakes suddenly feel magnified. his voice, his presence, the very things that once brought comfort, now feel heavy, suffocating. At the same time, the flaws in the new man, the arrogance, the emotional distance, the unpredictability become intoxicating. Her biology does not interpret them as danger. It interprets them as proof. Proof that he is strong enough to walk away. Proof that he does not need to beg. Proof that he carries the kind of power her subconscious believes will ensure survival. And this is the brutal truth. Biology does not care if that belief is accurate. It does not care if he is truly strong, truly safe, or truly capable of building a future. It only cares that he feels like it in that moment. Now pause and think about what this means. It means a woman can walk away from years of love and loyalty, not because she stopped loving, but because something deeper has taken the wheel. This is why her choices can look cold, even ruthless. Why she can abandon everything she once cherished in what feels like a single night. Not because she is cruel, not because she is heartless, but because her biology has declared, this man is the path forward. Jung noted that resisting this instinct is nearly impossible, because it does not just live in her thoughts, it burrows into the reward system of her brain. The same system that drives hunger, the same system that drives thirst, the same system that drives survival. You cannot reason with hunger, you cannot debate thirst, and you cannot out-argue a survival instinct. This is why lists of pros and cons collapse, why conversations about the future mean nothing, why promises and vows that once felt sacred can be erased overnight. Because this program was never designed for logic. It was designed to silence logic. Think of the ancient world. For thousands of years, hesitation meant death. A woman who delayed her choice risked extinction for her bloodline. Evolution had no patience for careful planning. It demanded speed, instinct, decisiveness. And so, nature built this mechanism. A hidden override button that, when pressed, floods her body with chemicals so strong they erase hesitation itself. And in today's world, that same ancient button still exists. Only now, it does not just choose survival, it destroys stability. But here is where the torment begins. Because even as her biology pulls her toward danger, her heart still remembers love. She can still feel gratitude, loyalty, tenderness. Inside her, two voices wage war, one whispering, "Stay." Remember the promises. Remember the years of devotion, the other screaming, "Run! Choose danger. Choose the unknown. Choose the man who feels like fire." And in that war, biology almost always wins. Not because love is weak, but because this instinct is older than love itself. And here is the most unsettling part. This instinct does not only rewrite her feelings about men, it rewrites her sense of self. The promises she once made now feel like chains. The life she built now feels like a script she never chose. Her closest friends, the ones who beg her to be careful, now feel like enemies holding her back. Her family, the people she once trusted most, now feel like walls trapping her inside a prison she must escape. To her, it does not feel like betrayal. It feels like liberation. She believes she is finally breaking free. She believes she is finally becoming who she truly is. She believes this is not programming at all, but awakening. But it is not awakening. It is biology, wearing the mask of freedom. And this is why men who do not understand this force feel like the ground is ripped out from under them. One day, they are loved. The next day, they are abandoned. And the woman they thought they knew, the woman who swore forever, looks them in the eyes and says, "I've changed. I can't explain why, but I have to go." And she means it. Because to her, it does not feel like choice. It feels like destiny. This is the storm Jung uncovered. A storm that does not just change her future, it rewrites her past. And unless you understand it, you will always feel helpless in its path. But once you do see it, you stop trying to fight biology with logic. You stop begging for love to be enough. And you start to see the truth, that this instinct is not about you. It is not about her. It is about nature itself, an ancient force moving through both of you, like fire through dry grass. And once you recognize that, you are no longer a victim of it, because you cannot fight the storm. But you can learn to stand inside it. When Carl Jung studied this instinct, he realized something chilling. It doesn't just shift her feelings, it rewrites her values. Think about that. A woman may spend years telling herself she wants kindness, stability, and loyalty. She may say those words with complete conviction. She may believe them with all her heart. And yet, When this ancient program awakens, those values quietly step aside. Suddenly, the traits she once dismissed as toxic become magnetic. The arrogance she swore she hated now feels like confidence. The unpredictability she once called dangerous now feels thrilling. The emotional distance she thought would destroy her now feels intoxicating. Her mind does not realize what is happening, but her biology is making the calculation for her. This man feels like survival, and here is the paradox. The man who gives her everything, the man who bends, who pleases, who offers safety without demand, should, in theory, be her perfect choice. But biology interprets him differently. Her subconscious whispers, if he is this available, if he is this eager, then perhaps he is not valuable, perhaps he has no options, perhaps he is not strong enough to lead me through the storm. And so, without realizing it, she begins to feel less drawn to the man who offers her peace, and more drawn to the man who threatens her with chaos. It is not a rational choice. It is not a conscious betrayal. It is the silent mathematics of survival. Jung observed that women often describe this shift with words that should sound alarming, but to them, it feels like liberation. They say, "I feel more alive than I have in years. I feel like I've finally woken up. I know he's dangerous, but I can't stay away." To their families, to their partners, to the outside world, this looks insane. But to the woman herself, it feels like truth. This is the cruel genius of nature. It does not make her feel pressured from the outside. It makes her feel pulled from the inside. It disguises programming as passion. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff. The wind is sharp, the rocks below jagged, the drop fatal. Logic screams, "Do not step forward." And yet something inside you whispers, "Jump. The danger is the point. The risk is the thrill." That is what this instinct feels like. The very man who should feel unsafe suddenly feels like safety itself. The very man who should feel threatening feels protective. The very man who could destroy her life feels like the only man who can save it. This is why women sometimes chase the wrong man. Not because they do not see the danger, but because their biology has reframed the danger as proof. And here is the most brutal truth of all. This instinct is not concerned with her long-term happiness. It does not care about compatibility, shared dreams, or the comfort of growing old together. It only cares about one thing: passing her genes into the strongest possible future. And in the brutal world of evolution, that strength was never measured in kindness. It was measured in dominance. In scarcity, the man who survived was not always the man who loved best. He was the man who imposed his will on the world. And so, thousands of years later, her body still seeks him, even if her mind resists, even if her life unravels. Jung documented cases of women who abandoned marriages, families, and entire lives for men who offered them nothing but danger. And when asked why, they could never fully explain it. They said things like, "It just feels right. I know it makes no sense, but I can't help it. It feels like destiny." And this is the most unsettling revelation. To her, it does not feel like programming. It feels like fate. Now imagine the man left behind. He gave her loyalty, he gave her love, he gave her stability, and still, she walked away. He is left asking, "What did I do wrong?" But the painful truth is this: he did nothing wrong, because this was never about him. It was never about his flaws. It was never about her conscious decision. It was about biology. About an instinct so old it does not even recognize modern life. An instinct that does not understand shared bank accounts, mortgages, or anniversaries. It only understands one thing: which man feels like survival. And here lies the key insight for men. The storm is not about controlling her. It is not about begging her to stay. It is not about proving your worth to her. Because the moment you do that, the moment you try to earn her loyalty, you signal that you have no options. And her biology interprets that as weakness. The paradox is cruel, but it is real. The more you chase, the less she values. The more you surrender, the less she desires. The more you give unconditionally, the more invisible you become. Why? Because biology is not rewarding your love. It is scanning for strength. And strength, in the language of evolution, does not mean cruelty. It does not mean abuse. It does not mean heartlessness. It means presence. It means self-mastery. It means the ability to walk away without fear. The man who can stand in the storm without begging her to stay. That is the man her biology cannot ignore. Because his very stillness whispers, "I do not need you. I choose you." and that is what her subconscious translates as value. This is why Jung believed understanding this instinct was not about condemning women, but about awakening men. Because once you understand the truth, you stop fighting shadows. You stop resenting women for what they cannot control. You stop blaming yourself for not being enough. And instead, you begin to see clearly, the storm is not the enemy. The storm is nature. And the man who understands the storm does not hide from it. He does not kneel before it. He learns to stand inside it. This is not about arrogance. It is not about manipulation. It is not about playing games. It is about mastering the only kingdom a man can ever rule, himself. Because the man who does not need her approval becomes the man whose approval she craves. The man who does not beg for her love becomes the man she feels drawn to love. The man who does not chase becomes the man she cannot help but follow. And this, Jung believed, was the hidden lesson inside the chaos of female psychology, that the real power is not found in controlling her, but in controlling yourself. But we are not done yet, because this instinct does not only reframe desire, it also distorts perception. It can make her see the man she once loved as the enemy, while convincing her the man who may destroy her life is her savior. And once you understand how that happens, you will never see attraction the same way again. When this instinct takes control, it does not simply nudge her toward a new path. It erases every other path. Jung described it as tunnel vision, a narrowing of reality itself. Her decisions, which once balanced love, loyalty, family, and future, are now filtered through a single question. Does this bring me closer to him, or does it hold me back? Everything else, her career, her friendships, her family's warnings, even her own carefully laid plans, begins to blur, fading into background noise. Her biology amplifies what draws her closer. It silences what might hold her back. And the result is devastating. Her entire world is reframed around the man who triggers this ancient program. The same house that once felt like comfort now feels like a cage. The same partner who once felt like love now feels like a chain. The same promises that once felt sacred now feel like shackles. And here lies the cruelty of nature. She does not experience this as confusion. She experiences it as clarity. She believes she has finally stopped lying to herself. She believes she is finally living honestly. She believes this is not programming, it is freedom. But in truth, it is not freedom. It is biology disguised as revelation. This is why her behavior can change so suddenly, so ruthlessly. One day she is devoted, the next day she is gone. And when people ask her why, she cannot explain. Because there is no logic behind it, there is only chemistry. A storm of dopamine, norepinephrine, and adrenaline flooding her brain, rewriting her sense of reality, convincing her that this new path is not just tempting, but destined. Think about how terrifying this is for the man left behind. He is not only losing her love, he is losing her memory of it. Moments that once bonded them now seem irrelevant to her. Conflicts that were forgiven suddenly feel like proof the relationship was doomed all along. Shared dreams, built over years, now feel like burdens she must escape. And no matter what he says, no matter how reasonable, how logical, how desperate, his words fall on deaf ears. Because reason is not the language her brain is speaking anymore. She is speaking the language of survival, and survival does not negotiate. This is why friends and family feel so powerless when trying to intervene. They list the risks. They plead with her to think carefully. They remind her of everything she will lose. But they are speaking to her rational mind, and her rational mind is no longer in charge. Biology has seized the wheel, and biology does not hear reason. It hears urgency. It hears dominance. It hears the primal call of evolution whispering, "Choose him, follow him. He is the path forward," and so, she engineers small moments to be near him. She replays every glance, every silence, every accidental touch until it feels like destiny itself. She interprets coincidences as fate, flaws as mystery, distance as proof of his value. She silences the voices of those who warn her. She justifies, defends, and explains away what would once have been deal breakers. And the deeper she falls into the tunnel, the less she even recognizes herself. She says, "I don't know who I am anymore." But to her, it doesn't feel like loss. It feels like awakening. And here is the most dangerous illusion of all. She believes she is making a free choice. But this is not freedom. It is programming. It is the oldest code in the human brain executing itself with brutal precision. It convinces her that her old life was a cage, that her old love was a lie, that her old dreams were illusions. And when she steps into the tunnel, she feels not like a betrayer, but like a hero, finally following her true path. Jung called this process emotional reframing. The same reality, the same people, the same life, but now painted in completely different colors. What once was warm now feels cold. What once was safe now feels suffocating. What once was love now feels like chains. And the man who triggered this program, he glows in her perception like fire in the dark. His presence feels impossibly vivid. His flaws, no matter how obvious, fade into the background. And in her mind, he is no longer just a man. He is the answer. He is the escape. He is destiny. Now pause and ask yourself, how can love compete with this? Love grows slowly, built on trust, time, and shared experiences. It is steady, fragile, human, but this instinct does not grow. It strikes, like lightning, like wildfire, like a storm crashing into her life, demanding immediate surrender. It does not wait politely for her to be ready. It does not care about the consequences. It does not even care if the man is right for her. All it cares about is urgency, and urgency always wins against patience. This is why women sometimes burn down entire lives for men they barely know, why they abandon safety for risk, stability for chaos, devotion for danger. It is not because they have stopped loving. It is because biology has declared that love itself is no longer enough. And once biology speaks, logic is silenced. But here is the truth men must hear, the truth Jung wanted to illuminate. This does not make women evil. This does not make them cruel. This does not even make them disloyal. It makes them human. Because this instinct is not her choice, it is nature's choice. A survival program so old it does not care about happiness, morality, or forever. It only cares about survival, and survival has no mercy. Now imagine what happens when a man stops resenting this truth, when he stops begging for the storm to spare him, when he stops believing that her choices define his worth. Suddenly, everything changes, because the man who understands the tunnel no longer fears it. He no longer clings to her for stability. He no longer pleads with her to remember. Instead, he becomes the kind of man her biology cannot ignore, not by chasing her, but by mastering himself. He is no longer the man begging to be chosen. He is the man who chooses himself. And in that moment, the storm loses its power over him. Because the final truth is this: the instinct will always exist. The storm will always come. The tunnel will always appear. But the man who understands it no longer kneels before it. He stands in it. And in standing, he becomes the storm himself. By now, you see it clearly. The instinct that Carl Jung uncovered is not a whisper in the background of a woman's mind. It is a force of nature, a force that can erase years of loyalty, rewrite her memories, and pull her toward men she once swore she would never touch. It is not weakness. It is not immaturity. It is not betrayal in the shallow sense. It is biology, an ancient code that does not care about comfort or compatibility. And if you are a man who does not understand this, you will always feel powerless before it. You will beg, plead, and negotiate, thinking love can outweigh it, only to watch as love itself is silenced by something older, deeper, stronger. But if you do understand it, if you finally see the storm for what it is, everything changes. Because here is the final secret Jung left behind. The storm was never meant to be tamed. It was meant to be respected. You cannot chain it. You cannot reason with it. You cannot beg it into submission. But you can stand inside it. You can learn to master yourself in its presence. And when you do, you stop being the man tossed around by her biology. You become the man whose presence commands it. This is why men who chase, men who beg, men who surrender everything in desperation always lose, because their very actions scream weakness. And weakness, in the language of biology, is death. But the man who holds his ground, the man who refuses to beg, who refuses to crumble, who refuses to let her choices define his value, sends a different signal entirely. He radiates presence. He radiates strength. He radiates the one thing her subconscious cannot resist. Proof that he does not need her, yet still chooses her. That is what separates kings from beggars. That is what transforms a man from someone easily abandoned into someone unforgettable. And here lies the paradox. When you stop chasing her, she chases you. When you stop needing her, she feels drawn to need you. When you master yourself, her biology reframes you as the man worth following. Not because you manipulated her, not because you played games, but because you stepped into the role nature designed long before you were born. Jung's discovery was not meant to condemn women, it was meant to wake men up. Because for too long, men have tried to fight biology with logic. They have tried to demand loyalty from a force older than loyalty itself. They have tried to beg love to outweigh instinct, when instinct was never designed to listen to love. But once you see the truth, you stop begging, you stop fearing, you stop resenting, and you begin to understand that the only battle worth fighting is not for her, it is for yourself. So, what does this mean in practice? It means stop trying to control her storm. It means stop collapsing the moment she pulls away. It means stop measuring your worth by whether she stays or goes. Because the moment you do that, you place your entire identity in the hands of biology you can never control. But when you anchor yourself, when you master your emotions, your presence, your purpose, you become the one constant the storm cannot move. And in that moment, you stop being the victim of the storm. You become the storm. And here is the final shift. The man who becomes the storm no longer fears being left. He no longer fears her desire, her biology, or even her choices, because he no longer fears himself. He does not beg for her loyalty. He does not demand her love. He commands respect, not by force, but by presence. And that presence is what her biology cannot ignore. So when she looks at you, she no longer sees the man who gave everything and lost everything. She sees the man who could walk away and yet chooses to stay. She sees the man who does not kneel to her storm because he carries one inside himself. She sees the man who no longer fights biology because he has become stronger than it. And that is the man who lingers in her memory forever. Because in the end, this was never just about women. It was never just about love. It was never just about relationships. It was about nature, about the ancient forces moving through all of us, about the hidden machinery that has shaped human destiny for thousands of years. And once you see it, once you truly understand it, you can never unsee it. You will begin to notice it everywhere, in the way she looks at certain men, in the way her voice changes when he enters the room, in the way her choice, her values, her entire world can shift overnight. And instead of resenting it, you will respect it. Instead of fearing it, you will embrace it. Instead of chasing it, you will embody it. So, here is the final lesson. Stop begging the storm to spare you. Stop asking love to save you. Stop pleading with biology to change its rules. Instead, step into the storm, not as a beggar, not as a victim, but as a king. Because the only kingdom a man can ever truly rule is himself. And when you master that kingdom, you stop fearing whether she stays or goes. You stop fearing whether love lasts or fades. You stop fearing whether biology betrays you. Because you are no longer ruled by the storm. You are the storm.